All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insanely 13, as we are about to get underway for Stint 3 out of 6 for IARA's 12 Hours at Road America. They're going to have to manually reorder the grid here, so do give them a little bit of patience for that. But Stint 1 was pretty wreck-filled in the first 40 minutes, but then calmed down afterwards. Stint 2 was really just action-packed, battle-filled in the GT Pro and Prototype categories. The Prototype fight went down basically to the last moments. They were side by side just as the final bell was called. But starting on pole here for Stint 3 in the Prototype category is going to be Marquin BR34 in the Motul Prototype, number 44, followed by HYR Spirit. The HYR team is in a legitimate fight for overall win right now with the this lead group that is run with TNR drivers. Third place is NDL Shadow. So Shadow now is going to have to do what the last two drivers could not. He needs to somehow get out there and be at least a mile and a quarter ahead of these two drivers ahead of him by the end of the stint. After them will be fourth place, who should be, I believe, AOE Mutiny, who is now cycled up into fourth overall in the 232, followed by RP Mullet here in the Spyro car. Then you get to the GT categories. Anzio, who is one of the drivers doing the Iron Man, he has now inherited the overall lead in the GT4 category in the 816 Subaru. He'll be followed closely by the Camaro, the number 21 driven by Ferrari, who is also the lobby host. Primo Carnivore Zero in the BMW. This car won Stint 1, but did not have a great time in Stint 2. It's fallen to third overall. Then you'll have BFL Colin in the number 49 Mustang, followed by Neil RCK in the number 95 Porsche. Then Nerdy Chimera, who is fighting for overall Stint win in the GT4 Amateur category. After that will be Too Kind Flora, which has just been having an awful time. And then Land Shoes 101 for the Mercedes entry. While they've had pace, their overall thing is they just want to be able to finish one of these stints here at Road America. So the interesting thing to watch is going to be the NDL team. Because once again, they are basically trying to dig themselves out of a hole early on here at Road America. Again, for those of you who do not remember from me saying earlier, I am guaranteed to cover this stint. Stint 4 and 5 I will not be covering. I will try to shepherd people over to the next streamer once the stint is basically ended. I will be covering the PTG NASCAR season finale, and then hopefully if that race doesn't go too long, fingers crossed, I should be able to come back and score the final broadcast for Stint 6 here, the final stint at Road America. We're about 42 seconds away from getting back underway here at Road America. We are honestly making some incredible time. We started a little bit behind after having to do a lobby reset in Stint 1, but we are actually clawing time back very efficiently here. So great job to the officials and the drivers being able to make that work here. All right, and here we go, as we see them starting to move once more. So, NDL, HYR, and then this number 44 team, which is kind of an assortment of different drivers. They have had 3 different entrants in all 3 of their stints. AOE Mutiny and RP Mullet are both doing their second stints thus far. So, how do these drivers perform? Oh, Marquin was slow. Boy, was Marquin slow, and Spirit is there. Shadow is there. Mutiny is there. Mullet has fallen off. But immediately, Spirit and Shadow are in a dead heat, trying to make something happen on Marquin. 3 cars all on top of each other, and the Spirit car is wide. He's going to try and fight back on Shadow, uphill, neck and neck, driver to driver. Shadow couldn't make it stick. He tried to go deep, try to make something on Marquin, couldn't make it stick, and now Marquin's sideways again, and now here comes Shadow around the outside. He's going to brake early, but wrap it around the outside, and the NZL team is to the front. Now they've gotten to this position before, and they actually open up. They are over a lap behind the leaders. They need to figure out a way to be at least a mile ahead of Marquin and Spirit by the end of this stint, if not more. Meanwhile, in GT, Anzio leads. Oh wait, Spirit's gotten by Marquin. This is not over yet. For a second. Marquin barely holding on to second. Here comes Spirit. You don't want to be on the outside going into this corner. Marquin cut the inside, but he didn't shoot the car too wide there at least. Spirit holding the inside. Both of these prototypes all sliding all over the place as they now begin to accelerate uphill. Already, Shadow's opened up this fantastic gap. All right, meanwhile, in GT, it is Anzio, Ferrari, and Primo Carnivore. 3 cars all right on top of each other as they run uphill now. Anzio defends the inside. Ferrari going around the outside. Neck and neck, Subaru versus Camaro. And the 21 clears the Subaru well before they get to the braking zone. So Ferrari now takes the Camaro into the lead. We've had a BMW win in GT, and we've had a Subaru win in GT. Could we see a Camaro win in Stint 3? Farther back, Neil is running in 4th place right now. Then you have BFL Colin, who is right now head of all the drivers in the GTM category in that number 49 Mustang. Nerdy Chimera, who is on the Ironman challenge trying to run all the stints himself. He is dead last in the grid right now. Again, there is still plenty of time for that to change, though. The fight for second is on once again. It is Marquin, Spirit's trying to wrap around. He's going to go deep on the inside, heading into Canada corner. Marquin backs out, so that way they don't make contact. They're now nose to tail, but now it is Spirit who moves up into second. Now, mind you, between these two, Marquin's team closed a moderately high amount on Spirit and Spirit's team, and the HYR team didn't have a massive gap on that 44. So these two are legitimately fighting not only for second in the stint, but they are fighting for the overall win right now, as NDL's team is a full mile behind in overall distance. So this is not just a fight for position on track, this is a fight for overall victory right now. These two are about as close as can be in the overall distance measurements right now. Meanwhile, while Ferrari is starting to scoot out a bit from Anzio, Anzio is now finding themselves under threat from Primo Carnivore. So it's going to be BMW versus Subaru. We saw this fight briefly early on in the prior stint. What's it going to look like here? Remember, Anzio is the other driver trying to Ironman it. His finishes in the stints thus far have been first and second. And Anzio should overall be leading in the GT category. But he does not seem to have pace compared to Primo Carnivore or Ferrari. Ferrari especially has already opened up a gap on this duo. Do you go for a big move under braking? Do you try to fight back? Or do you just want to go ahead and turn laps? Again, this is an endurance thing. They are trying to do 12 hours of racing today. You're asking a lot out of them. Do they just want to not have fights, just avoid incidents, and just try to focus on bringing home a respectable run? All three of the GT AM category cars have all kind of fallen back into the same area with each other. Colin just barely leads over Too Kind Flora and Nerdy Chimera right now. So maybe this will be the stint that we have a active fight for the lead in the GT Amateur category. Primo Carnivore has already disposed of Anzio, and now he is running down on Ferrari. So Camaro versus BMW. Definitely not the fight that a lot of people were anticipating, but it might be the one that we're getting. BMW trying to go on the outside. You don't want to be on the outside if you can help it through there, but Ferrari compromises run. Boy, did Ferrari compromise his run. He throws the lead away all by himself. He's going to try to fight back as the BMW kicks out sideways. Anzio's just going to watch the two and be like, yes, please keep fighting so I can just hang out in your tire tracks. Ferrari has the draft off the BMW down the start-finish straight. Run down into turn number 1 here. He looks inside. Gonna go deep under braking. But the BMW can wrap the wider way around. Doesn't have to worry about putting the power down as much on corner exit. He'll hold the lead for now. Ferrari tries to close in. Just tries to get right there. Can't make it stick. One now going to the outside. He's going to try and wrap around the outside. Boy, if he can make that stick, that would be impressive in that heavy Camaro. And it looks like he's making it stick. They'll still be side by side coming to the Corvette bridge. But Primo Carnivore doesn't want to push the issue too much. He brakes early. They're still side by side, but now as they come through turn 7, now Primo backs out of it, and Ferrari goes back to the lead. So he threw the lead away himself, but now within less than a lap, he fights and gets the lead back. Very solid job there. And look at this. BFL Colin, who is leading in GTM, goes off, and now here comes Too Kind Flora. Nerdy Chimera has had something going horribly wrong. I think they may have pitted. But now the two Mustangs are back to their fighting ways, but the difference now is that they are not just fighting for kicks, they are fighting for position. And right now it's the 64 ahead. Flora trying to close in on, well, Colin trying to close in on Flora, but right now it looks like Flora's got it. Meanwhile, back in the GT Pro lead. Actually, before we even focus on that, look at this. Neil and Land Chaos at it. Porsche and Mercedes. We've seen this fight back in Stint 1. Now it looks like it's coming back here. But anyways, we look at this. Ferrari leads. Primo Carnivore runs in his tire tracks now. It looks like everything's calmed down just a little bit here in the early stages. Spirit has opened up the gap between themselves and Mark Quinn. So HYR, if they can open this gap and keep prying the gap open, they could put themselves into a legitimate shot to fight for this overall event win. Again, we're not even halfway through yet, but the HYR team has been coming out strong today. Anzio is continuing to drop back in the 3rd position. For the drivers who are doing the Enduro challenges, Nerdy Chimera and Anzio, they were strong early, but it seems like their performance has been dropping off. Is fatigue coming in? Is fatigue going to derail their time? Prototype leader is about to be coming up on GT traffic very shortly here. Neil runs behind Landkos, but they're going to have NDL Shadow catching them just about the time they come out of the kink here. Shadow clears without issue. We're going to go ahead and knock this out early. We're going to ride for a flying lap on board with NDL Shadow, give you an idea what a flying lap looks like in the NDL car that's finally leading and able to scoot away from the rest of the grid, trying to dig themselves out of a hole here at Road America. And that was a full lap on board with NDL Shadow as he is trying to run away and open as big of a gap as possible on this man here, HYR Spirit. Marquin finally getting through traffic as Marquin wants to try and run Spirit back down. Again, if Shadow can open up a gap of 1.25 miles or more, then that means that the NDL team is finally able to start digging themselves out of the hole. Now, they would have to be averaging about 1.2 miles to 1.25 miles ahead of Spirit and Marquin and those two cars. Not just this stint, but the next 3 stints also, without fail. But if Shadow can pull it off, and it means that it is possible, and the NDL team may not be out of it. And for Spirit and Marquin, they are right on top of each other when it comes to overall distance. They need to kind of pull away from the other if either of them want to try and open up their own gap. Meanwhile, Ferrari, Primo Carnivore, in a neck-and-neck fight. As a prototype going to say, screw this, I'm just going to rush by 3 wide here. And Primo Carnivore around the inside is going to squeeze Ferrari. And the BMW goes back to the front here at Road America. Rushing back downhill once more. 21's going to go deep, going to go around the outside just a bit there. And they're door banging all over the place here. Anzio has completely lost touch with him. This is mano y mano here. Ferrari holding the inside line will get the position, but Primo Carnivore hits the inside curb, slides, all kinds of mad. He's going to have to get a perfect run through the kink to try and close the gap down. The Camaro's wide, Camaro's sliding, and the BMW's got to run. Here comes Primo Carnivore. He's going to go to the outside on the run down into Canada corner. He's just about got the task complete. How deep does the Camaro go? Not deep enough, and the BMW goes to the top. From a mistake in the carousel to an overtake in Canada corner. Incredible. He immediately runs wide in the final corner. That brings Ferrari right up behind him. The Camaro has a shot to maybe make a draft overtake down the straight here. Looking inside, looking outside. Here it comes. Gonna be an inside line maneuver. They'll be side by side as they head into the braking. How deep into the brakes does Ferrari go? just enough. It was going to slide right back in front of the BMW. Camaro back to the top. We've seen a Camaro finish third. We've seen him finish second. Can they finish first here in this third stint? GT traffic has spread out real significantly this stint compared to the last time. Big dive by Primo Carnivore. Might have been too big. Misses the apex. And while he was ahead for a moment, he just ends up right back behind the Mustang again. I keep saying Mustang, the Camaro again. Yeah, the GT category really spread out fast, and so did the prototype category. There is, outside of this, there's almost no other fights going on. It's really just this duo at the head of the GT4 category who are just slugging it out with each other today. Not a great run there by the Camaro. Primo had a nice tighter line. Is this going to be enough to pull him up alongside going into Canada corner? Oh, he's thinking about it. He's looking to the inside. Do you go deep or do you back out? He's going to back out early. He's hoping that the Camaro runs wide. But the Camaro holds station for now. Not a great run there for Primo. Camaro enters the final corner wide, but gives himself a nice tight exit, trying to maximize his straight line speed. Primo Carnivore, is he close enough to still have a draft on the Camaro? Doesn't look like it. It looks like it's going to open up. Okay, so with this in mind, let's go ahead and look at our prototype category drivers and see how they're all doing on fuel and tires. Indy El Shadow, he's got 35% with 12% in the fuel tank. For HYR Spirit, 35 in the fuel tank, 35% in the tire life. So pretty comparable there. For Marqueen, he's at 50% in the fuel, 31% in the tires. So Marqueen's better on his tires, but he has less fuel, so he has less flexibility. For RP Mullet, he's almost out of fuel, and he's burning through his tires comparable to everyone else. And for Mutiny, he's got 35% fuel, tires are comparable. So we're likely going to see Mullet pay in the next lap or two. Marquin will probably pit a lap afterwards. Now for our GT4 drivers. 8% left in the Camaro, 33% tire life. For Primo Carnivore, he's got 21% fuel, 34% tire life. So a lot more strategy flexibility for Carnivore. Land Chaos has now cycled up to third. I've missed something there, it seems. But he is at a comparable tire life, 15% in the fuel. For Neil Rack, he has got 27% in the fuel tank, and he's not even hit 30% in the tire life yet, so that could work out for him. Two Kind Flora is leading in the AM category. Pretty comparable numbers. Anzio, we don't know what's happened to Anzio. I guess he has just made his stop this last lap, so he'll be running for a while. Then you have BFL Colin, who goes off again. Won the prior stint, but it's just not working for him at all this stint. And then Chimera, who had to pit early on, we believe, from a lap 1 or 2 accident. So he's kind of not really in contention for anything right now. And here it comes. Ferrari ducks into the pits, but Primo Carnivore is going to stay out for a little longer, which is what we anticipated would happen. So we're going to go ahead and take a bit of a break here, and when we come back, we'll see where Ferrari and Primo Carnivore end up in relation to each other here at Road America. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you back here to Road America. HYR Spirit is nearly wrecking as he navigates his way through GT traffic. Drivers are making their first pit stops, and that is how Spirit has gotten the lead, because Indiel Shadow, Marquin, and RP Mullet have all elected to pit on the last lap while we are under brake. So Spirit is now your leader, although we don't know how much longer they're going to stay out. Primo Carnivore has finally gone ahead and made their stop. So the question is, Carnivore and Ferrari were right on top of each other. Ferrari elected to pit one lap earlier than Carnivore. Where are this duo of the Camaro and the BMW going to end up in relation to each other on the run down to turn 1? Already Primo Carnivore is accelerating down pit lane. He's just about out. Ferrari has already gotten back up to second. You can hear the power, and there's the move. And Ferrari is ahead of Carnivore. Carnivore still has to get his tires up to temp. He probably won't get his tires up to temp until they get down out of turn 5 at the end of the back straightaway. Realistically turn 3, but technically it's turn 5. But then Carnivore will be in a position where he'll have a slight but not insignificant tire advantage over Ferrari going forward. And with this in mind, in the GTM category, Two-Kind Flora and Nerdy Chimera on top of each other, and BFL Colin has now opened up the lead. So it looks like we're going to see all three of our entrants in the GTM category win at least one stint here. Still waiting to see when Spirit pits, because when Spirit does pit, where's he going to end up in relation to Marquin and Shadow? Or maybe it's Marquin. I'm going to say Marquin. I like the way that rolls up the tongue. So now Carnivore has gotten his tires up to temp, and now he is putting the pressure on Ferrari once again. Here comes Prototypes, though. Oh, that's a big slide, and both of the GT leaders slide wide. Spirit finally pitting. Oh, and Ferrari squeezed off the ideal line by a Prototype, but Primo's not in a position to fight back, or is he? No, he's gonna hold in line. You don't want to be side by side in this corner. He's just gonna run right behind for the moment. And there goes AOE, Mutiny, and Shadow, who have now passed. So we anticipate that Shadow, well, actually, Mutiny's going to be the one leading. So we're going to have 3 different leaders again. Technically 4, because Marquin did lead coming to the green. But, yeah, Mutiny is now going to be your leader. Granted, it's off the back of the fact that he has not yet made his first stop. And Shadow is well ahead of Spirit. But here's the other thing. Spirit is well ahead of Marquin. So this could get interesting. HYR continuing to punch for this victory here. Speaking of punching, this GT fight will not die, and Indiel Shadow has just gotten by AOE Mutiny here under braking. So Shadow now officially is back as the lead. Alright, under braking. Not a great run by either of them. I think Carnivore got out just a little better, but still nose to tail as they go under the Corvette bridge. Turn 6. So now that Spirit has cleared this duo, it's going to be clean track ahead for them for quite some time. Nerdy Chimera and Two-Kind Flora on top of each other. BFL Colin has now made a stop and is now suddenly way behind Flora and Chimera. It's been frustrating trying to keep track of the GTM fights sometimes, I won't lie. Both of these two taking every bit of pavement and the curbing, coming through the kink, and this time it's going to work out in Primo's favor. He's got the inside line. They both break out about the same time. Primo's going to squeeze Ferrari wide, and now Primo in the BMW goes back to the top. All right, now they got Marquin trying to run up on them. as Marquand's going to try and get by him as quickly as possible to get some clean air. This duo is still side by side as they come out of the final corner. It's not really a drag race, though. It seems pretty obvious that Ferrari has the line. And look at that. Marquand dropping 2 tires into the dirt just to clear the traffic there. You'll still have RP Mullet, who will be probably coming up to them just as they get down to turn 6, I would imagine. But after that, they won't have to deal with prototypes for a while, I imagine. Unless AOE Mutiny has a ridiculously long stop and ends up back behind this duo, but I don't see that happening. No big moves yet, but boy, Primo is putting the pressure on Ferrari right now. Battle of the P sounds, or the P drivers here, in the GT4 category. Okay, it took Mullet a little bit longer to catch these two than I thought. Gonna wrap around the long way. Ferrari broke early just so they wouldn't be contacting. It kind of caught Primo off guard. Kind of held both of them up. Now, Anzio is third, but Anzio has had nothing compared to these two. We don't know if the thing is that Anzio has just been exhausted. He's trying to do an Ironman, or we don't know why, but yeah, Anzio is nowhere near this duo. It looks like it's going to be this two fighting for the overall category win for the majority of this stint, potentially. Reminder, Ferrari pitted 1 lap earlier than Primo Carnivore. Okay, Indiel Shadow leads. Spirit has now retaken second. We're likely going to see Marquand go by Mutiny here. But I don't think that Mutiny is going to end up anywhere near this duo. And Primo is off and hits a bunch of cones, goes through the dirt, and is going to bleed off a huge chunk of time in the process. You can try and follow the car in front of you as much as you want, but you will deal with the draft, and the draft is going to pull you into the corners at speeds higher than anticipated. And if the car ahead of you is already taking all the track and you're trying to follow him with extra speed being dragged into the corner, it's very easy to run wide and bleed off a huge chunk of time. That's exactly what we just saw happen there to Primo Carnivore. Okay, so every driver has now made at least their first mandatory stop. So Colin has made a second stop, so I wonder if BFL Colin has had an accident. I just missed the news, basically. Excuse me. So now, Too Kind Flora and Nerdy Chimera, this duo are fighting legitimately for the stint win right now. Bit of a grand stalking battle for the moment. In the GT4 lead fight, though, in the pro category, Carnivore has gone off. We swapped over just as that happened. No damage to the car, but Carnivore seems to be derailing a little bit, and that is opening the gap up in Ferrari's favor. Meanwhile, Nerdy Chimera trying to close in on Too Kind Flora. So Porsche versus Mustang. In Stint 1, we saw the two Mustangs having kind of a knockout, drag-out fight for last place. It's an absolute ball to watch. Stint 2, none of the GT4 guys in the AM category were next to each other, and now We're seeing Nerdy Chimera trying to fight with Too Kind Flora. Now, Colin's on his strategy of his own. We think he was involved in an accident. We just missed it. So this should overall put Nerdy Chimera back in overall lead for the stint here. Well, not for the stint. Overall lead for his category. But again, we have to wonder, while we're looking at a scenario where exhaustion is starting to come into play, Anzio is nowhere near as fast as he was in the earlier stints, and Nerdy Chimera absolutely destroyed Too Kind Flora in stint 1. But Flora's had a break, Chimera has not. You have to wonder, is exhaustion going to start playing a factor? I don't normally do big enduros, but I've done smaller enduros. I've done 6-hour enduros solo. That's exhausting. And Chimera is basically in the middle of his 5th hour right now doing this. Still, he is closing down on the number 64 of Too Kind Flora. So right now, this is the most active battle on track. Marquin is starting to close the gap back down between themselves and Spirit. As second place, HYR Spirit, who is going by these two right now. Follow Marquin as he catches the leaders in GTAM. See how quickly he can dispose of them. He's got to catch them just as they come out of the kink by the looks of it. Ooh, nice! Bold and brash. Very expertly done there. So maybe there's a chance that Marquin is not done with Spirit. Real quickly, as we look at their fuel and tire numbers, 56% in the fuel with a 19% tire wear for Spirit. For Marquin, 32% in the fuel, 23% in the tires. So Marquin is running the gap down despite being at a bit of a tire disadvantage right now. Now your leader, NDL Shadow, is about to catch the overall GT category leaders, the GT Pro category leaders, very shortly here. On the run down to the final few corners. So I have a fight here in the back of the prototype category as well. RP Mullet was held up by Nerdy Chimera a little longer than anticipated, and now he's going to be held up just a little more than anticipated there by Too Kind Flora. And that's going to give Mutiny. Look at how much Mutiny has closed in now. Oh, Spirit! What's happened to Spirit? Spirit's had an accident! No damage, but Spirit has gone from second to third after a spin and a wall tap in the kink. And now, advantage for the momentum for the overall event goes back in Marquin's favor. This also helps Shadow out a bunch as well, because now, if he can be about a quarter of a lap, if not more, ahead of Marquin and Spirit by the end of this, it would help start digging his team out of the hole, and that's exactly what we are now looking at. So that little incident is going to have some major championship, well, I can't say championship, major race implications here. Nerdy Chimera pitting out. So Toucan Flora, who has been leading for a while, is going to be able to lead for a few more laps, but now without a Porsche breathing down his throat. Primo Carnivore continues to hang out just close enough that he can see Ferrari, but he's not able to actually run him down. Carnivore had some good pace earlier, but a few self-inflicted incidents, he fell off, and now it just seems like a mano-a-mano pace, it's just not there. He does not have the ability to really keep it at the same lap time consistently as Ferrari does. The big difference, though, is that Ferrari is going to be pitting likely about a lap earlier than Carnivore, so Carnivore may have a bit of a tire advantage going forward, as we see Ferrari going around well, he's not yet around him, but Ferrari struggling to get by the last place Mustang of BFL Colin there. But yeah, it does seem like Carnivore is definitely struggling just a little bit to actually do anything to keep up with Ferrari here as this has gone on. RP Mullet now jumping into the pits. So he'll be the first of the prototype drivers to knock out his second pit stop. How easy is this overtake going to be here for Primo Carnivore? Again, these two are not fighting for the same overall fight. The Mustang is in the GT Am, BMW and GT Pro. And it looks like Colin runs wide intentionally to let Carnivore by without too much issue there. So the top two in GT are starting to close back in. That is HYR Spirit and Marquin, who are both navigating traffic now. That's Marquin going around the outside. And Spirit will be following. Spirit's going to have to dispose of him very carefully here. He'll get by him before they get to the kink. Oh my gosh, that's no bueno. My goodness, yeah, Spirit is definitely struggling in the kink this time by. Although he did close a little bit on Marquin, he lost all that he was closing, that big twitch. Okay, NDL Shadow in the pits right now. He is making his second stop already. I imagine that Marquin is not going to be able to take the lead from him. If he did, that'd be hilarious. But I don't think Marquin's going to be able to take the lead from him. But the gap between our top three drivers overall has definitely come down. Oh, he's going to get it. He's going to get it. No, maybe not. Around the outside, he's side by side. They're going to be side by side in the next corner. He's got him now. So somehow, NDL Shadow has bled off a bunch of time and has fallen behind. I don't know if Shadow's had a spin of his own or what. But now first, second, third all seem to be back on top of each other in prototypes. Ferrari and Anzio both pitting, so Primo Carnivore will re-inherit the lead for a little bit here. Thought the race had calmed down, but no, all of a sudden now it's hit back up, and Mark Quinn is right ahead of Shadow. Now, a big thing, of course, is that Shadow has made his second stop early compared to Mark Quinn, so Mark Quinn's going to have to pit sooner rather than later. But if Mark Quinn can keep Shadow behind and really back Shadow up, cause Shadow to lose ground and not be able to take advantage of these fresher tires, that will potentially slow Shadow down enough overall that they won't be able to close in as much. Again, right now, the number 44, we believe, is in the overall lead in prototypes right now. All right, down to the kink. Most important corner, I would argue. Marquin tried to be defensive, but bled off too much time, and Shadow's going to blitz around the outside. Marquin goes in deep. Can't do anything about it. And look who's right back there behind Marquin. It is Spirit. Again, remember, Mark Quinn and Spirit both have yet to make their second stop. But the hope was that they could hold Shadow up as long as possible, just to compromise him in some way. And Mark Quinn's going to pit early, so Spirit's going to stay out a little longer. So it's going to be Spirit who's going to try and do something against Shadow. Ironically, this actually meant that Shadow, despite having made a second stop, is in the lead, but not for long, because Spirit's going to rip right around the outside. Can he make it stick? Not quite. There's just not quite enough room there. He has to back out. He's around, and he hits the wall, I think. And he's completely sideways. He hit the wall. He damaged the car. There's no damage. But he's going to lose a bunch of time, and that's going to work huge in Mark Quinn's favor. That's the second time we've seen Spirit have an incident in the last few moments here. Well, that seems to make it pretty obvious that even after Spirit makes a stop, he's going to end up behind Mark Quinn here. Carnivore making his stop. So we're going to go ahead and run on board for a flying lap with Ferrari in the Camaro. See what a flying lap looks like in the driver that we think is going to be leading overall. No, Ferrari's pitting again. What's happened here? Has he had an accident? We missed it. He has. Ferrari has had an accident. The Camaro that was starting to scoot away with the lead in GT has had an accident, and suddenly it goes back to Primo Carnivore. Now Primo Carnivore is looking like they might be able to go and pull off a stint win, bring 2 out of 3 stint wins in the first 3 stints. This has been wild today. I imagine Two-Kind Flora will be paying this lap as well, right? Oh yeah, he's just about out of fuel and nearly spins it out of the final corner there. And here comes Shadow out of the final corner. Spirit's bound to pit this time, and Mark Quinn will leapfrog Spirit. No, Spirit's not pitting this time either. Huh, interesting. Alright, we're going to ride on board for a lap with Nerdy Chimera, giving you an idea what a flying lap looks like in the Porsche that is going to be fighting for overall stint lead here in the GT4 AM category. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was a full lap on board with Nerdy Chimera. But as you saw there, that was Mark Quinn, who has already made his second stop. He should overall be in position to leapfrog Spirit once Spirit pits, because Spirit had that big off, but The guarantee on that is a lot less now because you saw and heard Marquin pulled up there on Nerdy Chimera, but just could not make the pass stick. Tried to go the long way around the outside, coming out of the carousel, ran himself into the dirt and bled off time. Now again, it's not nearly as bad as what Spirit had happen coming out of turn 1, but still, Marquin can't be affording to let things like that happen. The more mistakes that Marquin and Spirit have, the more and more it brings the NDL team back into overall fray of the event win here. Still, now that Marquin has disposed of the GT4 driver, it's going to be clean track for about a lap. Then he's going to catch the duo of Ferrari and Landshaw's by the looks of it. Right now, your leader in GT Pro is Primo Carnivore, who has yet to make his third stop. But that's only because Ferrari has only made a third stop because he's had an accident on his outlap. So as long as nothing crazy happens, Primo Carnivore is almost guaranteed to walk off with this stint win. And I do have to say, if nothing crazy happens, because crazy things happening has been the tale of the event. Okay, Spirit is in pits. Marquin is on the run down to the final corner. So we should see Marquin be able to overtake Spirit at this point. AoE Mutiny staying out a little longer. So Mutiny will go into second. But again, Mutiny still has to make 3 more stops. Spirit out of pit lane, now trying to get up through the gears. Here comes Marquin running down on Spirit. Should be an easy overtake going into turn 1. It's not gonna happen! Despite having a big off, Spirit's still ahead of Marquin. It's not by a big amount, but Spirit's ahead of Marquin. Well, didn't see that coming. I legitimately thought that Marquin was going to be able to clip Spirit and get at least ahead of him, if not way ahead of him, but no, Spirit is there. Now, Spirit still has to get his tires up to tip, but once he has cleared this corner here, Spirit's tires will be nice enough to tip, and Marquin shouldn't have to worry. Now, they are both coming up on traffic ahead. GT traffic. That is Landcause and Ferrari. Spirit's already cleared the Mercedes. Now Marquin's going to clear the Mercedes and make this move on the outside. Oh no, he's actually going to go for the inside. Okay. Now coming up on Ferrari. He'll clear Ferrari before they get to the kink, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem for him either. But the gap has opened up in Spirit's favor between these two. And then the other thing to consider is that Shadow, I said a quarter of a lap. He is more than a quarter of a lap up right now. At the rate this is going, the Shadow is doing some heavy lifting and is dragging the NDL team back into overall contention. Again, there are still three more stints. And Shadow's not going to be in position to just leapfrog them based off of this performance as well, but he is putting himself and his team in a good position going forward here. Yeah, so right now we do not have access to the live timing dock, so I cannot get you anything that accurate. I do apologize for that. Marquin's just not catching traffic in the most ideal places. It's not the worst ever, but they're really compromising his ability to just power out of the corners and run whatever line he wants. Now, he does have a tire advantage, so he should be able to start running Spirit down off of that. I do want to say, after everything that's come out, we've not talked a lot about him, but Anzio while he has not got the sheer race-winning pace that he did in Stint 2, he has had enough pace to be running top 3 overall. That, coupled with Ferrari's accident, has now moved Anzio up to 2nd overall. So it's looking like it's going to be BMW versus Subaru overall for the event win at this moment. Now, at the moment, Primo Carnivore in the BMW would definitely add significantly to them, but I think overall going into this, Anzio had the lead, so Anzio has some time he can afford to bleed out. Again, also remember, Anzio was running solo. He is trying to Ironman it, him and Nerdy Chimera. And speaking of which, Nerdy Chimera has completely lost touch with Too Kind Flora. Is actually not too far ahead of BFL Colin right now, as we see some of the LMP2 back markers going by. Or not? No, apparently. Okay, so the ticker was wrong and now it's right. Okay, so, okay, that explains it. So no, Nerdy Chimera is still running behind Too Kind Flora. Flora has had it. It's just kind of been a gradual stalking fight, but, while Nerdy Chimera destroyed Too Kind Flora back in Stint 1, had about a lap on him, it felt like. This stint, Too Kind Flora is running ahead of Chimera. And you couple that with Chimera's overall poor performance in Stint 2, again, you have to wonder, is exhaustion coming into play for the Ironman drivers? Trying to drive 12 hours. It's not technically 12 hours, it's more closer to like 11 hours or so. Well, actually, it's closer to 10 hours, but you have to wonder if that's going to compromise them. As I say that, though, Too Kind Flora runs off circuit coming onto the back straightaway, and that's the kind of thing that Chimera needs Flora to keep doing to try and close down and make the fight for GTM legitimate here. So as we're just about an hour into the event, everything seems to have calmed down just a little bit here. No real active fights on track. Stalking battles, plenty of them. But actual fights seem to have all gone away at this stage of the event. Still waiting to see when this driver, AOE Mutiny, is going to go ahead and make their second stop. Their tires aren't going to last a whole lot longer, but they still have fuel, so I could imagine they'll probably pit at the end of this lap, which will cycle them back to 4th overall on the grid. They are running well enough that even after pit stops, though, as long as they don't end up in an accident, they're basically guaranteed 4th, because RP Mullet has already gone a lap down, has already made an entire 3rd stop earlier than ideal. And RP Mullet, I believe, was also involved in an accident that we just didn't catch. Does Musumi come in this time? No, he wants to stay out for another lap, apparently. Interesting. So everything's really calmed down here. Midway through Stint 3 out of 6 at Road America, we're going to go ahead and take one of the mandated Twitch ad breaks. We're going to ride on board for a full lap on board with Primo Carnivore here. See what a flying lap looks like from the BMW driver in a different BMW driver's hands. And that was a full lap on board with Primo Carnivore. You're going to see here in just a moment this little fight going on for the GT-AM category win as Two-Time Flora struggles to keep Nerdy Chimera behind right now. 64 was over 2 laps down to the rest of the GT field. I think it was almost 2 laps down to BF Collins' car at the end of Stint 2. So the 64 overall is really far behind in overall distance. But Two-Kind Floor is really kind of coming to his own. And there is a legitimate possibility we could see all 3 entrants in the GT Amateur category win a stint here. But Nerdy Chimera runs in second and is really going to do everything he can to try and keep that from happening here. I do think that despite the fact that he has been bleeding off time as this is going on, Nerdy Chimera is still setting themselves up to be overall category leader in GT4 when it comes to overall cumulative distance by the time this is over here. We talked earlier about how far back the NDL team was behind the HYR team and the number 44 that we see Marquin driving when it came to overall distance, but it's twice as bad the gap of Two-Kind Flora's team, that number 64, behind everyone else, primarily Nerdy Chimera, in the GT Amateur category. So Neil's gone ahead and ducked into the pits to make his 3rd stop at this stage of the event now. Mullet has also been the first prototype to make his 3rd stop. So we are in the middle of, I don't know if I would outright say green flag stops. I mean, just general pit sequence. But some drivers are now going ahead and saying, hey, I'd rather pit early, get pit stops out of the way. Our leader at the moment is still Primo Carnivore. Anzio had been running in Oh, and Mullet's pitting again. What's going on here? Has he had an accident? No signs of an accident. There's engine damage. No signs of an accident. I know Mullet had an accident earlier. Okay, so he's pitting now because he had to make that 2nd stop earlier. I apologize. I forgot about that. But so this means that Mullet is obviously a lap down. He could end up being a lap down to 2nd, 3rd, and 4th also, depending on how the rest of this goes here. For those of you who care about the fight between Spirit and Marquin, which you should, because this is likely the fight for the overall event win. Spirit is maintaining his gap on Marquin, has actually been very slowly adding to it, but Spirit's been a lot more accident prone, has been struggling a lot trying to get by traffic. Marquin has had his own struggles, not as bad, but when your overall pace is down a little bit, it just hurts. Marquin, we look real quickly at their fuel numbers. They have 10% left in the tank. They're at 34% wear. Spirit, on the other hoofs, 32% in the fuel tank, 24% wear. So right now, Spirit is at the fuel and tire advantage and is slowly adding the gap between themselves and Marquin right now at this stage in the event. But again, the big thing to remember, the NDL team was over a lap behind in distance, over 4 miles behind in cumulative distance before Stint 3 started. But Shadow is absolutely performing big. He's finally coming in to make his 3rd stop now, but Shadow has almost half a lap now on Spirit. So we could see the NDL team's gap to the HYR team and the Marquin team. We could see that gap have, if not lose even more than that. So we're going to have a legitimate fight going into the next 3 stints here at Road America. Nerdy Chimera has also gone ahead and made his 3rd stop. So Two-Kind Flora holds on to the lead in category, but they will have to pit sooner rather than later. Primo Carnivore continues to run. Still has yet to make their 3rd stop of the day. So they're going relatively deep into the runs. Now we see Marquin pitting. And just a little earlier than anticipated. They could have probably stayed out for another lap, but they're electing to pit now. So what this means is that after Marquand comes out, while he will have a heavier car, his tires will be nice and fresh, and Marquand will have his best chance to try and close down the gap between himself and HYR Spirit at that point. Again, Spirit has had some offs, Marquand has had some offs, Shadow has not. And I think the big thing is going to be if the NDL team ends up winning the event overall, then we are going to be looking at a scenario where this stint 3, is likely going to be the one that is the NDL recovery stint. Because remember, stint 1, the NDL team had 3 accidents in the first 30 minutes. They ended up finishing over a lap down. And then in stint 2, while the NDL team performed better, they still only got 3rd and did not close at all on the HYR team or the number 44 entrance. But Shadow is clawing it back now. I don't think there's enough time for him to claw back an entire lap. But Shadow is on track to claw back maybe 3/4 of a lap. If you have a gap of 4 miles and you can claw back 3 of them, for the next 3 drivers in the NDL team, that would be incredible. Also, I do see NDL Dindu in the chat. Dindu, if you are there, I just do want to ask, are you going to be driving in either of the remaining 3 stints? Excuse me. Okay, so Dindu is going to be running in Stint 5. I will not be covering Stint 5, but I do have to say, I hope you have good luck and just anything that's not 3 accidents in the first 30 minutes again in Stint 5. I will be covering the PTG NASCAR season finale when Stint 5 is underway. While I would like to have been able to make this and cover the entire thing, Ironman, the broadcast, I did have already pre-established contracts, I guess you could say. Oh, wait, was that Mustang that went off? Not Mustang, Camaro. It looked like Ferrari went off there in turn 1. Still running. It's fine. Interesting thing for Ferrari. He's got a lot of fuel in the tank, but tires got quite a bit of wear on them. Now, remember, Ferrari had an accident after he made his second stop. He immediately had to pit right after, well, after his first stop, he had to pit right afterwards. Had an accident that totaled the rear of the car. So, he's now basically has to make the fuel and tires last a lot longer to try and make up for the accident earlier. So Ferrari is put in a very unenviable position right now. Any chance at the stint win is pretty much gone unless we see Primo Carnivore end up in some accidents. Which is a shame because Ferrari had been the fastest driver. He was starting to scoot out with the stint win. He's got speed, but I don't know if he's going to have the tire and fuel management in order to make the rest of this on what would be only one more stop. We have 28 minutes left, so it's not impossible, but it's not going to be feeling good for Ferrari in this Camaro by any means. And speaking of which, Primo Carnivore has gone ahead, and he is now making his 3rd stop of the event. Remember, Primo Carnivore will also have to make a 4th stop, as will Ferrari. These two are basically fighting for the stint win. Really, they're not fighting for the stint win, but they have been the ones that were fighting for the stint win early on. And then you have Anzio, who has been making his pit stops relatively early. He is also going to be fighting for what should be 2nd. If anything, I think we're going to be seeing Anzio trying to clip Ferrari for 2nd place overall at the end of this stint. Well, 2nd place amongst the GT4 drivers for the stint. And I think Anzio is in a position to where they are fighting with Primo Carnivore to try and hold the overall lead in the GT4 Pro category. Land Cruz has gone ahead and made a stop this time by now, so that will cycle Anzio back up to 3rd in GT. So now, even if it's only for a moment, Primo Carnivore and Ferrari basically share the same straightaway with each other. They are on the same straight as each other. But again, Carnivore is going to be running a fuel and tire advantage basically for just about the rest of this stint. There's no way that Ferrari can make that up, the tire advantage. And I don't know if Ferrari is going to be able to close down a significant gap on Primo Carnivore. Anzio is honestly a little bit farther away from Ferrari than Ferrari is to Carnivore. But again, Anzio should have a significant tire advantage as well. So if anything, I think Ferrari is just going to be trying to not bleed out too much time as he is trying to recover from the accident earlier, trying to go as deep into the runs as he is right now. For Marquin, a little bit of frustration for him. He is now trapped behind another prototype. It is not Spirit, the man who he has been fighting with. I say man, I don't actually know a lot of these people's genders. If I'm misgendering you, I am sorry. You're just going to have to tell me and realize I'm probably still going to forget because I'm a moron. But Mark Quinn is running fourth on track right now, tucked behind AOE Mutiny. Mutiny is the driver who's been going deeper onto the fuel and tire runs than anyone else. Mutiny could honestly be trying to set themselves up for a three-stop strategy and then just making the fourth stop a splash and go. It's a bold strategy, Pat, and let's see how it plays out for them. Remember, Spirit, who is in second, also still has yet to make their third stop, and there's only 25 minutes left in the stint. I would imagine for Mutiny and Spirit, you would want to make your stops now, and then maybe make your final stop with 5 minutes left, or as close to the 5-minute bell as possible. Coming up on some traffic, that is Neil Rick there, right ahead. I'm sure you've heard of Pickle Rick. Well, this is Neil Rick. Oh, wow! That was awesome! Oh, that was incredible! Marquin just put the foot to the floor and just absolutely destroyed Mutiny. Mutiny tried to hold on around the inside on the corner exit, had a little bit nice, more reserved line, and Marquin just put the foot to the floor, was not even remotely worried, didn't flinch, didn't blink, did nothing, and just powered by around the outside. They split that lap car like it was Mika Hakkinen and Michael Schumacher on the Campbell Straight at Spa-Francorchamps. That was awesome! That was incredible. You can't say that Marquin isn't trying. That was a great move there. Oh, I hope someone clips that and sends that to him later. That was fantastic. And for Neil, I'm sure Neil was definitely had a heart-in-the-throat moment seeing that happen right around him. Okay, so HYR Spirit has now made his third stop and is still well ahead of Marquin. Yeah, Spirit is continuing to open the gap between himself and Mark Quinn at this stage of this race. Mark Quinn legitimately had some fight for Spirit early on, but as this is going on, it just seems like it's been gradually bleeding off. So the turns continue to table. But again, the most interesting thing is that right now, NDL Shadow is going to have about a lap on Spirit, if not more. We could be looking at Shadow closing the gap down by 2.5 to 3 miles. And that is going to be the big thing. No, the NDL team is not going to take home the overall win after this, the overall lead after this, but they're going to be within 1 mile. We know the NDL drivers have been some of the fastest, but they've not been the cleanest in the first 2 stints, but boy, Shadow has made it work. And again, there are still 3 more stints. NDL could be really powerful. And it might sound like I'm just trying to, be underneath the table and give the NDL team some service, get some oil on their feet and wash their feet and all, like I'm a evangelical advertisement on your TV during the Super Bowl. It's not that. I've watched the NDL team for a long time. I've seen NDL drivers in IASC. I've seen NDL drivers in P1R, in the P1R championship, the SEC championship run by P1R, which is one endurance race every month that has been running this season. NDL NDL team is not only poised to win the championship, they are poised to lock up first, second, and third in the championship right now. I've seen them in IESC. They've pulled off wins in cars that have been awful there. I've seen them in Tora. NDL drivers are incredibly good at stealing Tora stints in almost any lobby, basically. NDL is one of those teams that if you see them, you know they're going to be fighting for the win here. And you can't really count them out until the checkered flag is out for the final stint. The fact that we're seeing NDL drivers have as much struggles as they had today is honestly wild, and the fact that they have been able to dig deep and make something out of it is honestly absurd. That almost never happens in real life, but it's happening today. AOE Mutami has gone ahead and made his third stop, so now everyone has made... Oh, and that's Shadow! Shadow, no! And I was just talking about how good the NDL drivers have been doing, and now Shadow has had an accident! He's gonna cut across, but NDL Shadow, the NDL team bad luck continues, and he has had an accident out of the final corner. Now the good news is, he'll be able to pit. He'll have to only go about 21 and a half minutes, so this shouldn't completely derail his strategy. But NDL Shadow has had an accident while trying to navigate the GT traffic. And an accident that has damaged the car, and this is going to massively cut back on the amount of time that the NDL team can close in. I can't believe this is happening because it's been the story for NDL all day long, but I can't believe it happened while we were watching it. And here comes HYR Spirit. Now, mind you, Spirit still has to make another pit stop, so he will end up back behind Shadow, but Spirit goes back to the lead. And suddenly, the HYR team, of the three teams who are running today, I feel like the HYR team was kind of like the underdog, but the HYR team is now back into contention. They are not only leading, they have opened up the gap on Mark Quinn, and now they're ahead of Shadow. Now again, while Spirit will have to pit again, they're going to be in a position where they're going to be a little bit less than a pit stop behind Shadow, after NDL Shadow has had a significant accident coming out of the final quarter while trying to navigate GT traffic. Anzio has also gone ahead and made his final stop. So the final pit stops now seem to be underway here at Road America. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and watch NDL Shadow as he tries to run back down HYR Spirit, and we're going to knock out the last ad break during the race. Once the stint is over, I'll probably knock out an ad break when that's over. But when we come back from this ad break, we will be here until the timer is up. We'll be back shortly here at Road America. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Road America. NDL Shadow is driving like a man possessed right now as he is desperately trying to run down the gap between himself and HYR Spirit so he can start opening it again. Gotta be careful with the traffic, but he clears them without too much issue. But man, he has been absolutely aggressive. He got alongside Anzio and just door bang them, pass them around the outside down in turn 5. Shadow needs to try and run down Spirit, so that way after Spirit makes a stop, Spirit can be as far back behind as possible. Because again, Shadow is trying to dig his team out of a over 4-mile gap here. And after the accident that happened about 5 minutes ago at this part of the track, it seems like it's a long way to go, but Shadow needs to do something to try and get back by Spirit quickly and hope that Spirit's day kind of gets derailed. And speaking of days that have been derailed, looking at Ferrari, who was involved in an accident of his own earlier, and he's trying to make his fuel and tires last really long here. He's just got done with his final pit stop, so as long as there's nothing else that happens, Marquin is pitting. Marquin is coming to the pits. So this is his last stop. So Marquin is going to, he's likely going to hold on to third, I imagine. He should be far enough ahead of AOE Mutiny that you shouldn't have to worry about that. But for Marquin, it's got to be frustrating because while he had pace early on in the stint, as this has gone on, his pace has dribbled away. It's really been NDL Shadow's day when it comes to pace, but the thing is that Shadow has been involved in an accident, and HYR Spirit, again, the HYR team has not been the outright fastest, but they have done the best job balancing speed with avoiding incidents, and they're leading this stint right now. Now, again, we know Spirit is going to pit again. We know they're going to get shunted back behind NDL Shadow after they pit, but a second place with the rate that they're going, they're likely going to take the overall lead back in the prototype category, and we're also likely going to see them, while they'll still lose some of their ground over Shadow, they're going to massively open their gap over Marquin, I would imagine, and someone's gone off there. What happened there to RP Mullet? He has gone way off, no damage, but he has gone way off there in the Paul Tracy corner. Well, Spirit, along with Primo Carnivore, AoE Mutiny, Two Kind Flora, and Nerdy Chimera all have about 10 minutes to knock out their final pit stop. One other thing, Land Chaos, this Mercedes entrance, has been competitive in the first 2 stints, but they have not been able to finish a single stint. Disconnects in both of the first 2 stints. So the Mercedes team, while a win is completely out of their hooves, they just want to be able to steal some kind of, result, some kind of actual running at the end of the finish here. While Chimera is likely not going to be in a position to fight for overall win for any of these stints, and he's definitely not going to be able to bring this team into a fight for overall win across the entire event. Any kind of result would be great for them right now. All right, so Two Kind Flora has gone ahead and made their stop, and AoE Mutiny is now going ahead and making their stop as well. So the only prototype who has yet to make their final stop here is HYR Spirit. He's got plenty of fuel, his tires are good, so he can stay out as long as he wants. Again, I think that Spirit might try a splash and go, and Mutiny is back in the pits? No, he just got done with his pit stop. Okay. I was freaking out there. I saw something on the ticker, and that was not accurate. But again, I imagine that HYR Spirit is going to try a splash and go. He might just try jump in and put only the barest amount of fuel in, and then run to the end. We only have about 13 minutes left in this event. When he makes a stop, he's got 20% left, so yeah, he could probably put a very small amount of fuel in. And if he's not burning through his tires rapidly, he may just keep the same set of tires on, make sure that the pit stop is nice and short, so that way he can maintain as much of his lead as possible and lose as little as possible to Shadow. And that's the other thing. We thought the Shadow was going to be able, on fresher tires, to run Spirit right back down. That's not the case. I wonder if Shadow is just kind of overdriving over his head right now. He is not running Spirit down. Spirit on older tires is scooting away gradually from Shadow. Again, we know that Shadow is going to win the stint, barring another accident. And considering how the NDL team's day has been going thus far, it wouldn't be that surprising if that happened. But Shadow has not got the pace that we thought he would. And that is kind of putting us in that's putting him in a position where the NDL team is still going to have to pull themselves a long way out. I think they might still be able to close by about a mile, but quite literally, Shadow was on track to maybe close the gap to the leaders by about 2.5 miles at the rate it was going before he had his accident. Can't say he's not driving mad. He is taking advantage of every inch on the track. It's just, driving mad is not necessarily the best way to go about these things. Okay, one other thing to talk about, this is Primo Carnivore. We are all but guaranteed to see this entrant win in the GT4 Pro category, all off the back of Ferrari, who is about a quarter of a lap behind. Ferrari had an accident. Ferrari's just been trying to do damage recovery mode. And then you have Anzio, who is a little bit farther back. Frustrating for Anzio is that Anzio's just not had any pace. Ferrari had an accident, and yet is still going to finish ahead of Anzio by the looks of it. All right, Spirit has finally made his stop. They put everything in. Okay, so that was not a short stop. They put a lot of fuel in and tires. Now, Mark Quinn is still about half a lap behind Spirit, to really kind of put in perspective how badly Mark Quinn's pace has bled off as the event has gone on. Mark Quinn was about half a lap behind Spirit when Spirit made their stop. Now, they're going to close some of that gap back down, obviously, but still, it has not gone well for Mark Quinn, just bleeding off pace as the event has gone on, and they've not had great time navigating traffic either. Still, the number 44 entry is very much in the hunt for the overall event win, and honestly, NDL Shadows team, the NDL team, the HYR team that Spirit's on, and then this number 44 that we see people like RX and Mark Quinn running in, these guys are all three in the hunt. Again, I'm not going to be able to cover the next few stints, sadly, but I can say one thing for certain. This is going to get wild trying to calculate and crunch numbers going forward. Again, I'm not going to be here for the next 2 stints, but I kind of wish I was. This is going to get really, really exciting on the run to the end here at Road America, this fight for the overall win between our top 3 prototype entries. Primo Carnivore is finally making his stop, so Ferrari looks like, unless something goes ridiculously wrong, we're going to see Ferrari walk out of here with a second place result. So it's been respectable for the Camaro, but that's just not going to be enough. Right now, that BMW entry, and RP Mullet is pitting again. Has he run himself out of fuel? No, but he's run himself just about out of tires, so he's pitting now. So Mullet is making a 5th pit stop now. So he is not only going to be a lap down, he's going to be way behind. So Spyro team had a top 3 run in Stint 1, but it's all just kind of come unglued for them back-to-back last place runs in the prototype category for that Spyro car. And then in the GT Am category, if you told me that all 3 GT Amateur cars were going to win a stint in the first 3 stints, I would have called you a liar. But that is what we are on track to see here. Two Kind Flora, as long as nothing crazy happens to him in these last 9 minutes, Two Kind Flora is going to win Stint 3. Mind you, he was about a lap behind Nerdy Chimera at the end of Stint 1. Was nowhere near him. And now, he seems to have figured out the car. The car seems to be a lot more in control for him. And now, he is on track to potentially bring home a stint win in his category. Though, GTM is going to get really weird. I do think that Nerdy Chimera still has the overall advantage, though, because Two Kind Flora's teammate who ran in Stint 2, they finished about 2 laps down, or almost 2 laps down, to the stint winner, to the Am stint winner in Stint 2. So the number 64 Ford Mustang is not in a good position when it comes to overall distance, but when it comes to just performance today, Nerdy Chimera has kind of gone from 0 to hero. Just needs to avoid anything problematic happening, and he's going to be able to pull off a stint win when, again, 4 hours ago, I should say maybe 2 hours ago. No, 4 hours ago, he was looking like not great. Let's just say not great. Okay. NDL Shadow. He's going to win, but it's going to be frustrating. A run that he's going to be kicking himself over, saying, what could have been? I should have been so much higher up. But he was involved in an accident trying to navigate GT traffic. All of the NDL drivers have been cursed today to just have subpar runs. They've had the best pace, but just keep constantly getting involved in incidents. There's a 4th place finish. And Stint won! Oh, and Shadow slides off again! Can't be doing that. I swear the NDL drivers are going to give me a heart attack. Maybe it's a good thing I'm not covering Stint 4 and 5. The NDL drivers are going to give me an outright heart attack with the way that they have been driving today. But still, right now, Shadow is going to be about a third of a lap ahead of Spirit. Maybe a little less than that. Maybe a little more than that. Something like that. So despite the accident, Shadow's still in a respectable position overall. I think he's still going to close by about a mile or a little more. But Shadow was legitimately looking like he was in a position to close the gap down by 2.5 miles, if not more. As it is now, I think the gap's going to be more closer to 1.2 miles. But I did say early on in the stint, if Shadow can close by about 1.2 miles, and then the next 3 NDL drivers could also close by about 1.2 miles, they'll be in. Now, obviously, Shadow would have wanted to be able to close by more than that, would have put a little bit less stress on his teammates. But I do think that the NDL team is very much still in the thick of it. But, they keep tripping over their own feet, or more like tripping over the hurdles of the lap cars, as just keeping things really, really frustrating for them. They really have to be up on top of the wheel. But if their drivers in Stint 4 or 5 can perform on the speed level that Shadow has had and just not had have any accidents, I feel that the NDL team can still come back from behind and win this event. Meanwhile, in GT, I've already said this before, but Primo Carnivore going to win. This will be the second win in 3 stints for this BMW entry. Now, they didn't have a great run in Stint 2, but they won Stint 1. They're on track to win Stint 3 here. This should be the entrant that is overall ahead. Ferrari going to bring the Camaro to another top 3 result here. And then Anzio, a lot farther back in 3rd. Ironman Challenge. Looked like he was going to be leading overall at the end of Stint 2 in the GT category, but his performance in this stint has just not been anywhere near what he needs it to be. And then we have 4th place, Land Shows. Assuming that nothing happens, he will be able to bring home a 4th place result. Finally, the first finishing result for one of these stints here for this Mercedes entry. Then you have Neil Rick, and he is going to be 5th in the Porsche, the Mulsanne Canada Porsche. Then you get to the GT-AM category, Two Kind Flora in the number 64, going to bring home a win. He's trying to be very careful not to get in the markway, and they still make contact. He broke early and ran wide to try and give the prototype as much room as possible. They still made contact. But yeah, he's just going to cruise off with this Nerdy Chimera. Another driver trying to do the solo enduro. That's both drivers right there who are trying to do solo enduro, Ironmaning the entire thing. Chimera trying to win overall in GT4AM. I think they're still in a decent position, but if they keep bleeding time like this, it's going to be really bad for that number 45 entry. And then last place will be BFL Colin. It's just not been a good time for them. Had some accidents early on. Now, thankfully, they've not had to make a bunch of extra stops. They just have had no pace and they're going to be about 8/10 of a lap behind Two Kind Flora by the end of this. But still, this car won the prior stint. So yeah, all three GT Am cars have won one of our first 3 stints. That's kind of the wild thing here. NDL Shadow finally will bring the NDL team a victory, a stint victory today. Something they feel that they should have had right at the start, but it was an accident in the first few corners of stint 1, then followed by 2 more. Then the fastest driver again in stint 2, but could not keep it clean and could not stay ahead of the HYR team when they were off pace. Now they are finally ahead. They're finally able to start closing the gap down. They're finally getting everything back on track, but is it too little too late, or is it just in time? We won't know for another 6 hours. One thing's for sure, it's definitely made for an engaging event to watch. That's for sure. As NDL Shadow is closing in on 4th place AOE Mutiny here. And we'll see if he can put Mutiny down by the end of this. Again, Mutiny and Mullet's team, they have been no better than 3rd in any of the runs thus far. They are completely out of overall winning performance. So this would be more of just, Shadow flexing or trying to flex at the end. So yep, Shadow gets by, so he has now put 4th and 5th place in prototypes, a lap down. A little less than a minute left here. Oh, Shadow, what are you doing? That's really wide. You don't need to be that wide. Bleeds off some important time. Is actually going to let Mutiny get by. Is Mutiny going to get a lap back? Well, Mutiny sure is trying to get a lap back. No, all right, Mutiny goes wide in turn 1. So yeah, Shadow will keep him a lap down. This man is going to give me a bloody heart attack. This team is going to give me a bloody heart attack. But as we watch the time tick away, 2 seconds, 1 second, and time's up, over, plow. All right, and real quick, NDL Shadow is your stint winner. HYR Spirit comes home 2nd, so they will be back in the overall lead. Marquin BR34 is going to be 3rd. AOE Mutiny will be 4th. RP Mullet will be a very distant 5th. In the GTs, Primo Carnivore brings it home the 2nd victory for the BMW team in the GT Pros. Ferrari recovers from an accident early to come home to a 2nd place finish, but it might have been all it took to just derail the Camaro's shot at winning overall in class. Anzio will bring home 3rd, so they're keeping their shot at winning overall alive. Land Chaos, the Mercedes team finally finishes a stint. Then you get Neil Rick, who will come home in 5th position in the Porsche, followed by Two Kind Flora. And all 3 GT entrants finally have won a stint in the first 3. Nerdy Chimera will be a distant 2nd, but should still be overall lead within that category in the GTM class. And then BFL Colin will be dead last. We're going to knock out an ad break here. And once we come back, we'll see if we can try to get any interviews done with our category winners here at Road America. Yeah, but shame I can't read the names on the car. All right, sweet. Let's see if this works. Please work, please work, please work. Shadow, can you hear me? All right. In the Xbox party, are you able to include your audio?
Yes, I just did.
All right, sweet. Well, Shadow, you're gonna give me a heart attack, man, and you're probably gonna give most of your team a heart attack as well. But despite being involved in an accident and going off track multiple times, you will take home the stint victory and finally start pushing this team back in the right direction. What do you have to say about your run out there today?
Um, I mean, the first part was really good. Second half, I started to lose focus a little bit, and that's when the crash happened. I would have liked to have not lost those or that 15 seconds, but you know, we've Dindu and Cosmic coming up next, so I imagine they'll do very well, probably much better than I did. So I think we can crawl back to win.
Yeah, the distance gap overall seems to be pretty big. Hello, Flora. Stand by 1 minute and we'll get an interview with you. The distance gap seemed to be a little bit more than a full lap, so a bit more than 4 miles coming into this stint. By the end of this, we think you probably knocked off about a mile to 1.2 miles. Over the next 3 stints, do you think the next 3 drivers can take off, on average, another 1.2 miles each?
I imagine that they can. Yeah, Dindu and Cosmic are much better at this combo than I am. I got asked to do this 18 hours before the race, so I had very little prep going into this, and they have had a lot more time. So I imagine they will destroy what I just did.
All right, and I believe that Cosmic is going to be running stint 4 and Dindu will be running stint 5, right?
Yes.
All right, we'll be definitely keeping an eye on that then, although sadly it won't be on my channel. But I do want to say, hey, thanks for jumping in and talking with us. Good job on the stint win, mate.
Thank you.
All right, now I want to go ahead and talk with our winner for the stint in the GT Am category, the GT4 Amateur category, Too Kind Flora. Flora, definitely a very interesting time for you. We saw you in stint 1. The car looked evil under you. It looked fun, but it looked evil. And now today you walk off with a stint win. How did you turn that around?
I took advantage of the time to further optimize my tuning, and thanks to, I believe it was Beautiful Flavor Alan for helping me out with the tuning and practice, and yeah, a lot better, able to make up some time for my team and whatnot, so yeah, things looking pretty good.
All right, there are still 3 more stints left. Nerdy Chimera has an advantage overall in the distance, but you've definitely closed the gap down. Who's going to be taking over for the car in stint 4?
That'll be Hellbane, and I'll be doing stint 5, and things looking pretty good. Hoping to catch up and close the gap, make things an interesting game.
All right, thanks for jumping in and talking with us, mate. Also, I like your PFP.
Thank you.
All right, with that in mind, I'll pretty much wrap up our broadcast here from Road America. I'm going to go ahead and take a real quick check and see if the stream for the next stint has started or not. If it has, I'm going to try and, migrate everyone in that direction. But otherwise, this is over. I will be back in a little bit more than an hour to cover the PTG NASCAR season finale. And if that race does not go too long, I will be here to do the final stint of this Enduro. Fingers crossed, hopefully that works out there. Oh, okay, so Twitch's not going to let me do the raid. I'm sorry. You're all going to have to manually find Praegel. His channel's name is spelled Praegel, and he should start running the broadcast for the next stint probably in about 5 minutes or so. But until next time, I've been your host for today's broadcast, Insanely 13. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Farewell, and goodbye, everyone.